If it's Ghana, yeah, if it's Ghana or any other country, please let us know. Okay, so before we get into the introductions for this meeting, we'll be going through we'll be looking at the logistics and financial things you need to get ready, the blueprints. We'll also look at the core knowledge and then the high yield concepts. And we'll have some time for a Q&A session after for any questions you might have. Okay, so starting with the introductions, I'll begin. So my name is Princess Benson. I am a fifth year medical student at the University of Ghana Medical School. My research interests are around cardiothoracic surgery. And I have a foundation in a company that basically teaches people how to do CPR. Okay, and I'll go into my other lovely speakers. Pearl, Gloria, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is
Okay.
Gloria Pegonia Igani. I'm a fifth year medical student at the University of Ghana, and I'm interested in dermatology. And I'm a huge Rick and Morty fan.
Nice to know. Who doesn't love drink? Okay, Pearl.
Hi everyone. So I'm Pearl Ohinawatinkran, and I'm a fifth year medical student in the University of Ghana Medical School, and I'm interested in global neuroscience. I'm happy to be here to share the little that I know. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. So basically, for this meeting, we are going to give you an honest and general overview of what it is like through the process of taking the United States Medical Licensure exam as an African medical student. We'll do well to answer the questions. We'll be honest about our journeys, the difficulties, the strengths, if any, and all the things we've had to hurdle through. But to begin the meeting, we will go through the logistics and financial blueprint to give everyone a good idea. So again, with the housekeeping rules, if you do have any questions through the session, please type them in the chat box. If we do not address it by the end of the meeting, we will open up a Q&A session where you can ask any questions you might have if they haven't been answered. And also in the chat box, you can let us know the countries you're coming from. I'm coming from Ghana. Okay, so we're going to get right into it. So now talking about the logistics and financial blueprint for the USMLE Step 1, there've been a few changes, especially this year with the whole structure of the exam and the other things that we will need to know. If you haven't started your preparations or anything, this is what you need to know. So I want you to think of it as two doors. There's a system called the MyInHealth, and then there's another system called the FSMB. Now, when you are starting with the process, you would log onto MyInHealth. You would create an account. You'd be given an ID. And MyInHealth is basically going to verify your credentials. By verifying your credentials, what this means is they're going to make sure that your medical school is listed under the World Directory of Medical Schools. And then they're going to make sure that you are a medical student or you have completed from a medical school and are a doctor. And then you're going to pay an accreditation fee. You pay a fee for the whole processing of that. After some time, they're going to get back to you and you're going to have an interview with a notary cam representative. During that meeting, you're going to need your passport. It's going to be next to you. You'll be asked a few questions. The representative will take some pictures of you and then they'll carry on with the process. So the whole accreditation process through the MyInHealth, the first part, the total sum of that comes up to about $910. Basically, there are different subsets of the prices, but that's what it basically comes up to. Now, you need to go through the MyInHealth and be checked and accepted or cleared through the ECFMG before you can go on to book the actual exam. When you're done with this part, then you go to another website where you create another account, completely different login. This is the second door I was referring to in the beginning because people tend to get this part confused a little bit. You go to the FSMB website for this. This is the part that is for like the actual exam in terms of paying for the exam, booking it, and scheduling when you're going to take the test. This is what this part of the exam does basically. And when you log in, the website will unlock for you to be able to book the exam, it's going to verify the information you put in earlier under MyInHealth to make sure that you're an actual medical student or you are a doctor or you've just finished or something before it unlocks for you to be able to book the exam. Now, a problem most people have had with this part is with their names. So I had a friend who, unfortunately, the name on his passport was not the same name he used through medical school. So it identified it as two different people, even though he was the same one. And that was really a challenge. The system, your name has to be in the order that it is on in your passports. Otherwise, it's not going to go through. It's going to think you're two different people, and you have to manually correct that before you can move on to the next step of the exam. So the whole part with the My In Health and everything, the entire amount for that comes up to about $910. The part for the FSMB totally also comes down to $905. So this is the part where you book, schedule, and then pay for the exam and then go on. Now, also this year, as at April and 1st April, there were a few changes that were made in the sense that which Laura and Pearl will also talk about during the sessions, that the USMLE went from a 7 block of 40 questions to 14 blocks of 20 questions. So that means that you are not doing a full 40. You're basically doing 20 questions per block. And these 20 questions, you have an allotted time of 30 minutes for this part. That means you have about 90 seconds per question. Now, this is the part where it's important. Although step 1 is pass or fail, it's really important that you practice your time management, which I'm sure Gloria and Pearl will talk about during their sessions, because the vignettes are really long. Practicing, I've come to realize that for AMBOS, for instance, the question stems are a little shorter than the question stems on UWorld. And that's something you have to get used to. In as much as you're practicing, always try and make sure you're timing yourself to make sure that you are not spending too much time, because the vignettes are really long, and you have to make use of a lot of information in a very short amount of time. So there are a few countries where there are prometric centers in a few countries where you can take it. There's one in Accra, Ghana. There is one in South Africa, Uganda, and Kenya, if I'm not wrong. So if you're not already a resident in this country, you also have to factor in the cost for travel and stay and actually booking the exam and taking it in these locations. So that's the other parts you need to keep in mind. But most importantly, which is a problem I've seen people have, is with the names, making sure that the name on your passport is the same name that is going through your medical school educational system, just so you don't have any problems. Because at ECFMG, because they can't exactly take your word for it that you're a medical student, they will check with your medical school. It's part of the fees that you would pay. They'll check in with your medical school to make sure that the name you gave them on your passports is fitting with the name in your medical school records. And yeah, I think that should be about it. Looking at the best times to take this exam, honestly, we will talk about this through the session, but I've come to realize that the USMLE doesn't test how smart you are. It's not for the person with the best IQ. It's basically your strategy, your stamina, and your how you're able to think on your feet really, really quickly. And because most of the concepts for step 1 heavily rely on the basic science concepts, broadly, the best time to take it is when you're transitioning from your medical school from the basic sciences to the clinical sciences, just so everything is really fresh in your mind. All those cell biology concepts and your pharmacology and all the things you need to keep in mind. We will talk about it more as we go through the meeting, but just generally, is what you would have to keep in mind. Now, what you need to know for this exam, or in terms of how you need to prepare, I'll stop here by saying that, sharing my personal experience, and I'm sure Gloria and Pearl, you'd share the same sentiment, that when I was starting and studying, the first time I looked at a question on AMBOS to attempt to answer it, I remember I read the question and I knew exactly the concept it was testing. I looked through the possible answers and I knew what the answer was. But for some strange reason, I don't know if it's an imposter syndrome, I didn't believe that I would know so quickly what the answer should be. I mean, because it's the USMLE. Like, oh my God, I didn't think I would know immediately. So I got a mind block and I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. And I chose the wrong answer. But so when I saw the explanation, I realized that I was right. And if there's anything I'll start by saying is that the internal drive has to start with you, because the USMLE, it's a humbling journey. It will humble you in the most unimaginable ways. And again, keeping in mind that it's not a test of how smart you are or how well you're able to remember stuff is very different. Very, very different from all those things will really help you, and the attitude you have to approaching things. Because I also remember that in answering questions, like, everything counts. the mood you are in, your sitting posture. I realized that when I'm going through questions, I do better when I'm sitting up, when I'm like, in a more prepared, ready to fight spirits than when I'm laid back or I'm letting the previous 20 questions I got wrong hang over my chest. So that's very important. Now, that's a very important thing to also keep in mind while you prepare. Now, Pearl, I'm going to invite you in to talk at this point about the core knowledge. What's do these our colleagues or other African medical students, what do they need to know in preparing for this journey?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. So I'd start by saying that the USMLE Step 1 content is really not different from what we've been learning in medical school. I think that was I don't know why for some strange reason I thought I was coming to learn a whole new
very
different thing. Yeah, like different concepts. It's the same anatomy and microbiology, pharmacology. Like our lecturers actually did their best to teach us. So I'll not even lie and say that foreign concepts, no, the same old things we know. But I think probably doing it in fifth year because it's I completed data science 2 years ago. So it's just yeah, it was hard bringing it out of memory.
Going back,
but then for the basic science medical students, yeah, this is the best time to give it a shot because it's really what you're learning, nothing new.
It is.
Yeah. So in terms of content, I'd say that it's not anything oh my gosh, extremely different. No, it's pretty much the same thing with a few slight differences here and there, but it's not anything that you can't handle. And I'll also say that the only difference really is the fact that for step one really has a lot of second order, third order questions. And
it does.
I'm sure you're wondering, what are second order, third order questions? So I think a Ghanaian medical school exam will probably just ask, for example, we'll just give you a big neck. So it's they'll just give you a case that, okay, looks like this is infective endocarditis, new MEMA, this, that, he's an IV drug user and whatnot. But the possible answers are just infective endocarditis, cardiomyopathy, it's just exactly what's the diagnosis. No, USMLE knows you know it's infective endocarditis. So there's no point. Yeah. I think sometimes it's just so funny because you're not even done reading the sickness, but it's you have yes, it's
I know what
endocarditis. Yes, only for you to just go through the answer options and they're asking something not completely different. It's really about you understanding the mechanisms. Because I think something you should prioritize in your step one preparation is why. Never stop asking yourself why. If you just take things, if you take things like face value, okay, I know this is this, that's all you're ending there. Trust me, that's all they're going to ask you. They're going to test your mechanism. On the exam, the real deal, yeah, I know this is insulin. Then the options, peptide, carbohydrates, this. You need to know that insulin is a peptide. Exactly. So it's there are just a lot of second order and third order questions that require you to actually understand the mechanisms and the whys behind stuff. Yeah. So then you have to have that integration thinking cap on. Don't just segregate your mind into pathology. Because I know that's how we ask questions in medical school. This is only no, USMLE could be testing your pathology, microbiology, pharmacology, all in one question. You just need to don't compartmentalize your brain. Know that it's basic science, so anything at all could come. Yes. So then always be prepared. And to be very honest, this is not even to scare you, but everything I think USMLE does a good job by actually bringing similar concepts in their in practice tests. So it's not you're not going to get anything extra. I mean, there are a few questions that are going to oh, I've never seen this before. The questions are pretty similar to the sample test. They will really not try and do anything wicked to you. I know African medical students, we have this, I don't know, trust issues. Oh, are they really going to bring? Yes, they are. And I think that's one thing I'm actually going to give them. Most of the questions that do appear on the real day, if you've taken your practice test seriously, the MBMEs, they'll be familiar. You're not going to see any extra strange, scary questions like that. So I'd pretty much say that's it for the similarity and the differences in the content. Yeah. So I hope I I've answered
Yes.
it.
Oh, but I
Yeah.
would like you to talk also about, and you and Gloria, about the exam link, going through those
Yeah.
8 hours, because it
Yeah.
can be something.
If I'm being honest, I think Reddit really exaggerated the length of the stems. I don't know if it's because I used UWorld, but UWorld question stems are so long. And I did about 80% of the question bank. So genuinely, like I wasn't surprised with the length of the stem. Yeah, because I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm used to. Even I actually felt like most of the questions I got were just short, like they were too short.
Shorter
I
questions.
yeah, I rarely got like the whole the full patient history and questions. Yeah, I had about
Yes.
5 of them. And to be fair, they were relatively straightforward. Like, yes, it's this. Like, it's not anything too strange for those questions. And I think for answering questions on the real deal in general, or even in your practice test, which is that incorporating these techniques, always go straight to what the last sentence of the question. It will just save you a lot of time. Like you don't need to. Well, that's what helped me. You really don't need to start reading, because usually the stems are long. Like you end up using 1 minute to read and understand.
Yeah.
And yeah, have 15 questions left, and your timer is okay, yeah, 10 minutes more. Exactly. So you really have to be smart and strategic, because it's really not about, yes, content wise, you need to know your content, but strategies, guys. Yeah. So I think that's what I'll say about the question. And yeah, Gloria can say something. I know she
Yeah,
has
Gloria,
it.
how did
Yeah,
you
so
find that?
personally,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, so personally for me, the question length was pretty long. I found the question stems long. I also used to use Word, by the way, but on the real deal, the question stems were too long. I had to use highlighting tools a lot just to make sure I wasn't getting drowned
Yeah.
in a lot of
In the
irrelevant
information.
information, and I was just fishing out what I actually needed to answer the questions. I think what also really helped me in answering the questions on time instead of wasting a lot of time on reading was during my practice tests and periods, I used to try to answer a question in less than 90 seconds, maybe 60
Yes.
questions. 60 seconds. I mean, I used to push myself to try and answer really fast. The other good thing about really answering fast is you don't have time to overthink a question and start psychoanalyzing,
Yes.
finding staring at you straight in the
Yeah.
face, So it's really a skill that you acquire over time, over solving a lot of questions. And that requires practice and consistency. So there's no easy way out. It's a standardized exam. So you have to put in the work. Because if you don't put in the work, it's going to show in your MBMEs. Because in your MBMEs, if you are scoring 50s and there's no way on the real deal you are going to pass the exam.
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
garbage in, garbage out. What you put in is yeah, that's just my contribution.
Yes, and I'll add to what both of you have said in the sense that even in answering the questions, especially in the beginning, you absolutely cannot let the fact that you're getting the answers wrong weigh you down. It's much easier said than done. I've had moments where I've stopped through a block and I'll break down and cry because what is going on? But you have to keep in mind that you can't. What really helped me was seeing things as okay, I didn't know this, now I know this and I'm learning. And interestingly, although the questions there's so many different concepts, it's actually showed in the other questions I was answering. Because sometimes you don't, and making sure that when you're answering a question, you read the first few lines and you have no idea. You have to try not to block your mind that, oh, I don't know. That I don't know this spirit. It's really bad. It stops you before you can think about it. Because sometimes going through the practice test and the questions, what I would do is when I read it, I genuinely don't know the answer, but I know what is not the answer, and that's what I use to then get the answer. It's so helpful because I'm like, okay, there's no way this is this because this concept wasn't mentioned, blah blah blah, and then it comes down to it. It's a very for Pearl, what you were saying, because this is not something, it's not a typical exam structure for African medical students. It's something you need to grasp, and I feel like even going through this journey has made me appreciate medicine a lot more because I've seen it. Yes, it's so wholesome and it's honestly so beautiful if you think about it. Because you're answering a question, they're asking, okay, pregnant woman, she's bleeding. right after delivery, you need to give okay, you need to give oxytocin, and then the question is like, what G protein couple receptor is it going to go through? You're like, wow, I never thought about that. I didn't even know that was a thing. And I remember when I got a question, I was like, why would I even need to know this? But I realized that this is the reason. The only difference in how we do medicine is that we don't conceptualize it in a way that we can learn how to make medication to make things better. Do you understand? Because if you are going to make a drug, you need to know how oxytocin is working, which receptor, so that you can replicate it. And that's when you see the beauty in the whole thing. And I've come to find that thinking about it this way rather than this is like so much information and it's dragging on me is really helpful. And it helps with your mental health because, Charlie, you will need it. You really need it going through it. You absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one thing I changed about my study approach is mainly moving from passive learning, because USMLE and passive learning don't go together. You actively have to learn, like be involved in what's happening. Otherwise, you just end up wasting your time. So let's like try and move from like passive learning to active learning. And I really like what Gloria shared about like the questioning. I think one thing most people neglect is the fact that you need to build like stamina, and it comes with like practicing a lot of questions. I remember Oric actually used to tell me to practice like under testing conditions. And I think it's something that really helps. So thankfully for my MBMEs from MBME 25 to MBME 33, I took all of them under testing conditions.
What do you mean by testing conditions?
Exactly. Okay. So then the MBME questions are 200 questions. So pretty much 4 blocks. You can do it in 4 blocks of like 50 questions. I mean, that's how we do it. So then try and take them timed. If you're using UWorld or like the online, if you're taking the MBMEs online thingy, try and take them timed. So 50 questions, use about 75 minutes, 75 minutes, I believe. But just try and take them time, because if you just like take your time, use a whole day for 200 questions, you really not get used to like the testing, the time conditions. Because I think it's a real thing, guys. Like on the real day, you're solving 40 questions in 1 hour. It's not enough. You just need to get used to it. And one thing I realized that most of the time, every time I got to my third or fourth block, I was just so done. Like, I think for the MBME questions here, I was really just done because I'm like, can this already end? And to think on your real day, you're doing 7 blocks. It's really not the usual, like, Ghana. How I think our longest exam was like, what, 3 hours?
3 hours for like very few questions. That's the thing was.
It's a whole day out there and the break time. So you really just need to get into the testing like conditions and try to do it without any distractions. So I mean, thankfully I didn't have people distracting me anyway. So I just go to the reading room and I just take the test. Yes. So just try and do it in a place where you're not going to get any distractions. The parents will not come and call you to do this, hey, that. No, just try and do it without distractions and get used to solving questions like back to back, or like you can even practice your breaks. Yeah. So then just try and do it under testing conditions to build like your stamina. Yeah. I think Gloria had like a whole break structure. Yeah, I think she can share it with us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. Should I like share now?
Yeah, go
Okay.
on.
Basically, I tried as much as possible, as Pearl said, to simulate the NDMEs under strict exam conditions. So we know during the exam there are 7 blocks of 40 questions each, and a block you're supposed to answer the questions in an hour, right? So that makes 7 hours, and you're allowed a 1 hour break. So in total, you have 8 hours of full exam, and you
Questions.
decide how you use your break and the 1 hour break. So I tried as much as possible to sort of push through the first 2 blocks without taking a break, you know, because my mind is still really sharp during that time. And then after every single break, I either take a 10-minute break or a 15-minute break. And then for the last 2 blocks, when I'm getting really tired, I save more time. So I take maybe 20-minute breaks or 15-minute breaks. And during those breaks, even if I'm taking them in my room, I usually used to study in my room. Personally, for me, I like to have absolute focus with no one in my vision. I like laser focus. So I try to take it in my room. If I'm taking my practice test in my room, even if I have nowhere to go, I don't really want to do anything. During my breaks, I get up, I stretch, I drink water. I try not to eat food because food will make me feel a bit
Slow. Yeah.
and then I come back. I time myself with my phone so I know time is going. Sometimes you have to be really strict with yourself. Behave like it's the actual exam. So you just time yourself and then you take the quiz. And I think it really helps.
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense.
And I think also relating that to the actual exam, I would say that during my breaks for the actual exam, I would go to the washroom every single time because I was drinking a lot of water. So I had to use the washroom.
Glory.
Even if I don't need to use the washroom, I just go to the washrooms. Hey, guys, hear me out. Guys, hear me out. Even if I don't use the washroom, I just go to the washroom mirror. I stand in front of the mirror for myself that, Gloria, you are done with the previous block. Forget about it and move on.
Mhm.
So God help me. And then I take a deep breath, try and just calm myself down because there's a lot of pressure,
There is.
and then I go back.
Yeah.
That's
that makes
wonderful.
I think I just want to touch on what Faria said, like her last statement. You really need to have, I don't know, whatever mantra you have, if you're Christian, Muslim, if whatever makes you feel hopeful, like you need to find something to say because it's really not funny on that day. And also, I realized that for like the day I was writing, okay, I don't know if I'm jumping the gun, but let me just say it right.
Don't
The
worry.
day I was
Go on.
writing, yeah, the lady at our testing center, she kept telling us that like it's in the morning, try and take as many blocks as she can. So I realized like I took 4 blocks back to back to back. That it worked for me because
Wow.
I felt like
Wow.
yes, I actually took 4 blocks, no break, like back to back to back. And then I realized that you see the whole process of okay, you're taking a break time, they expecting you and whatnot, and you standing
Yeah.
up, you feel like okay, I felt like the Ghanaian in me felt like no, like I'm distracting people. I don't want to stand up. These don't like you interpolate because I didn't know, I just felt so bad. Like I don't want to distract anyone. I don't want to I was just a bit I don't know. But no, like it's really once you want to take the exam once and for all.
And
So
so
paid for it. It's like feel free if you want to take any breaks as you want. Please do. Don't be
you
shy. I'm just talking for any like
Yeah.
medical student
Yeah.
out there who like
Yeah.
probably felt like the way I was feeling here. Don't be shy or anything. Like if you're uncomfortable, always feel free to take that break, leave. You're not worrying anyone at all. Yeah. So
Yeah. Pearl, just to add to what you said, actually,
yeah.
when I was taking my exam, we were
Yeah.
just 3 people on my testing day. So it was me and 2 other Nigerians.
Yeah.
And ask me how I know. Like their accents don't give them out to any Nigerian here. I mean, I noticed they took only 1 or 2 breaks the whole time. And I was I was like, what is happening? All taking the same exam. They're really smart, But I had my whole plan and strategy. I was like, okay, I'm taking these number of breaks. I'm going to do this. So I didn't decide to change last minute and say, I'm going to follow what they are doing. Okay, so whatever you've planned, whatever you've been doing the whole time you've been practicing,
Yeah.
stick to that on the exam day. Don't make panic and fear. Let you change certain things you've been doing just to, feel like you belong. Okay.
Yeah. I'll just add to that and say that you have to, that's why it's really important to try and simulate the actual exams as early as possible. So that's something that you get used to because you don't want to end up being surprised on the actual day or even trying out new things. Okay, let me do this instead and see if this going. It definitely will not work out. And that is of all the days, that is not the day you want to be trying out new things.
Don't try it.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Now, I know how easy it is to feel like you're drowning in so many resources
Yeah.
because I remember when I was looking into like starting the whole journey, everyone was like, oh, use Ambers. And then they're like, oh, the Ambers the Amboss questions are so difficult. He's UWorld. Oh, UWorld is expensive. This and this and this and that. For the expensive parts, what I will say is that if you know where you're trying to go, like Pearl, Gloria, you guys are looking to go into like dermatology and then neuroscience, neurosurgery. Sorry, you know what's this? This is going to come at a very painful cost. You know, factually speaking, it's not going to be handed on a clean slate in any kind of way. So you want to make sure if you're going for it, you're giving your all in the beginning. If you have to pay for something, you just have to, because you have to make it work. You don't want to end up doing something subpar and regretting it when you don't get the right results at the end of the exam, because the recovery from writing and not passing is unimaginable. It's not something you want to experience at all. That's why you have to do this once and for all. Just like Orion Paul said, you guys try and simulate it as much as possible early on. Do it like you're doing the actual thing, because you are doing the actual thing. Back to the resource drowning thing. What resources worked for you? I figured the only difference I noticed was that using Amboss and using UWorld, I felt like the question stems on Amboss were just a little shorter, but it was like 5%. Very few questions, because sometimes I felt like, oh, this is like quite the same. I also felt like Amboss tests and the concepts it was testing were a little harder and a little less straightforward than UWorld, because sometimes I'm looking at the questions on UWorld and I'm like, I knew this answer, but I don't know if that will it be this easy. And I start overthinking the whole thing. What worked for you guys? What and how did you manage, getting drowned and using this and this and this at the same time?
Okay, so I think I'll go first. So I agree with what you said with the Amboss and Welch. And I think it's something I heard a lot of people say that Amboss questions are just generally difficult. But that's the thing, like it depends on your goal, right? Surely, like
Yeah.
step one is really just pass or fail. I think Amboss just stresses you out for nothing. But then again, too, like they actually say that a good step one foundation helps with like step two. So then,
Yes.
even though it's like pass or fail, like the quality of your study during like your step one will actually help you like greatly in step two. And to be fair, apparently like there's some step one concepts that are still tested in step two, because I mean they're not entirely different, but it's like it's just a build up. So there's no such thing as you're learning too much, but depending on your timeline, for me, like for instance, I had a shorter timeline because I mistakenly chose a window time that was like really short. So by the time, because I chose between February to April, so April was like the last month of my window period. So then by the time I confirmed my window period, February was ending. So I pretty much had like just March and April to, try and like tough it out. So it was really like a lot of things. So I just wanted to use like high yield like resources, like no time wasters or anything. So UWorld, I used UWorld. It was really good. And I think one thing most people should notice that UWorld is not it's not something it's not a predictive tool. It's a learning tool. So don't be bothered. Like I get a 40%. I think my average UWorld score is like 44%. Yeah, like the entire 80% like Q bank I did, like sometimes it can be very disheartening because you feel like, okay, yes, I've really learned cardio today. Oh my gosh, this test, I was like 35 or something over 40, bro. Like it's really not like that. Like you all to really humble you. But I'd say that the power of the power really in you world is how you review the questions. Take your time to deeply review. And I think there's something that's already told me that I'll never forget. He told me that always find out why the question, even if you have the answer right, find out why. Don't just take it, okay, B is the answer, move on. I think that's how like Daniel medical students we're used to solving past school. Like, okay, A is the answer, okay, B is the answer. Don't do you wrote like that at all. Like take your time, like why is A wrong? Why is B the right answer? Take your time and go through every single one of them. And I think it's to really, really like benefit you. But then again, for me, I use Amboss too. That's the thing, because too. I think Gloria is the only one who used like you wrote. She never used Amboss.
Purely.
I just stuck
but
to you.
I think in March, Amboss had like this free self-assessment week. Mind you, I had taken 2 MBOs prior to that, and I had about 53 or so. I was like less than 2 months away from my test date, and I was getting 53, but trauma. So I remember after taking like the Amber self-assessment test, I was like borderline passing. So I took my time and reviewed all the questions on Ambos. I used the question like their library. Like Ambos is just so easy
It's
because
so
it's like this.
extensive.
It's
Yeah.
like it's just this library. Like
Mm.
at one tap, you're already learning this. So I really took advantage of that. And I remember the MBME I took right after taking that Amber self-assessment test. Like my score just jumped by 10 points. So I think it really made a massive difference for me.
Yes.
Yes, because I personally really like this. But then again, I'll say that try and focus on like one resource. I think Ambers can help with like the ethics questions or the social
Yeah.
questions. But like I think if you're using Ambers, stick to Ambers. Don't use both UWorld and Ambers. Like especially if you don't have time, you shouldn't really waste so much time on step one, in my opinion. So yeah, like if you can stick to one resource, try and do that. Also, I think the second resource for me is first aid. Like
It's hands down. That's you can't do step one without first aid. But sorry,
Yes.
Pearl, before you go
Yeah.
on step first aid, what I will say is I also realized that with Ambos, for instance, like taking it in the beginning, seeing the score all the time, because you know it gives you like the bar and it was all
Yeah.
red. It really took a toll on me
Yeah.
mentally. I had to talk to myself. And Oracle spoke to me a lot about making sure that like that's not what you're focusing on. And at the end of the day, I realized that what helps is not how much you remember, it's your consistency. Because
Yes.
we have been so used to our exam system here from like the very beginning of medical school. So really getting into that different, it's even helps you like think about things in life much differently. I remember I started asking so many whys for everything around. And
Yeah.
I also found that interesting, contrary to what you're saying, I felt like the questions on ethics on Amboss were a little easier than the ones on New World. Funny enough,
Yeah.
I felt like the Amboss
Yeah.
ones were more straightforward. And also, what I would say with the ethics parts is that it's much easier to understand it if you're doing it and treating the patients you are seeing in that way, you know, with the full respect. It helps you to conceptualize things much easier. So I felt like well, the ethics questions on Apples were more straightforward than the ones on because you and I'm like cracking my head. I'm like, "Hey, I don't know, like what is this?" But again, what's you can't one thing you absolutely don't want to do is you're using UWorld, you're using Ambos, you're using so many strange, you know, kill banks. Especially at least the most popular ones have been tried and tested and they've worked.
Yeah.
I know people that have used UWorld purely in past. I know people that have used Ambos purely in past. The stronger mental people. So just stick to one thing from the beginning and stay to it. You don't want to, you know, do that shift too much. It will take away your confidence and you definitely need your confidence for the exam 100% because you are all you have when you're behind that computer.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
actually so true. So I'll go
Yeah.
to first aid. So first aid is really not a textbook. I think it's just a PDF with like all the high yield stuff. And I know sometimes it can get confusing because you realize that depending on the disease condition, that's what they focus on. So maybe for esophageal cancer, they focus mainly on like the risk factors. Just learn that. You don't really have to worry yourself and think, oh
Yeah.
no, they'll probably ask me this. First aid is like the high yield, like it's like the Bible. Yeah. And I wasn't personally, I couldn't read like first aid like a textbook, like, okay, I'm done with chapter one, I'm going here. I treated first aid like a reference tool. So every time I was like reviewing questions or doing my MBAs, I just opened first aid for, okay, this condition, what else has first aid said about it? And I read it back. I never really read it like I'm done with chapter one, I'm going, because it's very hard to read it like a textbook. Yeah, so then that's what I'll say for first aid. Then pathoma. Pathoma is really, really good. It's high yield, like we need Reddit when it comes to this. Like pathoma is actually like really high yield for step one because pathology is like mainly covered. A huge chunk of the exam is pathology, like pathophysiology stuff. And I think Pathoma really did a great job from, especially, I know people actually talk about chapters one to three, but I think the entire Pathoma is actually really helpful.
Yeah, it's a really great resource.
Yeah, it's not really just like chapter one to chapter three, like focus on like the pathology for every system. I think Pathoma is really, really good. There are pictures, everything, like focus on it because you might get some piece or similar concepts from Pathoma. And I personally didn't use Anki. I don't know if any of you use Anki. Like there was no time for
Oh, you did, Gloria?
I
I
did.
did this religiously every single day. I just used the when I needed to remember specific facts and names, drug names, and for microbiology because
Mm-hmm.
there were a lot.
Yeah,
So what I used to
microbiology.
do was I would just when I'm learning a certain system, I would learn the pharmacology of that system, watch a sketchy video, and then go on Anki to sort of
Yeah.
solidify it and do that over a couple of days till I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, so that's what I use Anki for.
Great. Good. I think now that you mentioned Sketchy, I'll just talk about Sketchy. Personally, Sketchy didn't help me. Like, am I the only one?
No, but
Sketchy,
it didn't help me either. I used
Away,
to get so because
guys.
it's good when it's not like under tensions conditions. But I remember I'm mixing
okay.
things. I'm mixing the movies in my head. I'm like, did he hold a yellow star for a red one? So yeah, it didn't help me honestly. I know people that it did help,
Help?
but
Yeah.
personally,
Yeah, it did help me. Sketchy
oh, it did.
is up there
Wow.
in
How
my
did you
top
use it?
3
I
resources.
don't know.
I
Wow.
watched it. I watched it till I forgot the number of times I've ever watched Sketchy. Like I have
Wow.
all the pictures etched in my mind, like
Wow.
give me a question now, I'll be able to answer. So I try to watch at least 2 sketchy videos every single day. And after doing those sketchy videos, so I paired that with Anki.
Okay. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
because there's a pre-made Anki deck. In fact, there are pre-made Anki decks for almost all the resources.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a pre-made Anki deck for
Mhm.
all the sketchy videos I was watching. So
Okay.
immediately after watching those, I'll go do the Anki. And I so happen to be doing that particular system. I just quickly go and do my UWorld questions on it. So I try to integrate everything. It was just watching the videos repeatedly because personally for me, I'm a visual learner and some of the stories surrounding what is being talked about are interesting. Some are also really cringe, but
Mhm.
you have to do what you have,
Yeah.
so
Let's see.
yeah.
So let me just interrupt you both over here. And I just want to, I hope everyone else can also appreciate how dedicated and focused you must be to this cause. Because like Gloria said, you can't, she was doing you said 2 Anki videos in it, sketchy videos in a day. You're making
Yeah.
you're sticking to it. It's either that
Yeah.
or no food for the rest of the day. And I can't, and what's had is also helping me is having like a targeted number of questions I'm going to go through in a day. Like it can't take the back seat. Although we are doing medical school, thankfully, the benefits is that it's the same medicine we're doing. And once you're able to appreciate that early on, you see that you don't need to finish medical school to be able to do this and pass and do it right. You really do not. Because it's the same thing you're going to be doing anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah. Sorry, Pearl, back to what you were saying.
Yes, I think in addition to what she said, I'll just add something one of my mentors actually told me. He told me that learning for step 1 is really not a waste of time. Because sometimes I felt like, oh, like,
Yeah.
why am I doing this? Like, I have ONG
I
to
could be
learn.
sitting
But he was like, knowledge is knowledge. And to be fair, he wasn't lying. Like, it's still medical school knowledge that you're learning. If anything, I think it makes you smarter. Like, you just know stuff that no one knows.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'd also say that consistency is really key. I think you mentioned it. Have a goal in mind.
Every
I
day.
spoke to Samira about like this whole step 1 thing. And it's something she told me. She said she did about 80 questions every day and she stuck to it. And I think for me to starting like this, so because I started like the first day of the day. So I started hard, like at least 40 questions, 40 world questions every single day. I wasn't like compromising. No matter how tired I am, I need to do like the 40 questions and
You need yes.
that's feeling like, okay, yes, I've
I've
accomplished
done
my
it.
mission.
Yeah.
Yes, that kind of thing. So I'd say, I know I get a lot of questions about consistency or how do you just do it. Like, there's no
Yeah.
really just like do it and show up and just have like be consistent. That's really because I think little by little it will all just add up. So yeah, back
Yes.
to the resources. Genuinely speaking, I think about a month to my test date, I was just using MBNs. I think it just gets to the point where you know that okay, you're done with Q banks. You need to focus on
Mhm.
like what is really going to be tested. And trust me when I say this, the real deal is not going to be so far from your MBNs. It's not, don't believe Reddit. Like Reddit has a lot of fear mongering there. It's really not true. Like your MBM need concepts will be tested. You're probably not going to get the exact same questions. I actually had like a few repeats, but it was
Really?
yeah. I didn't even remember, like, I'm so bad at remembering exact questions. Like, once I finished and I just clicked I'm done. Like that's it. I can't even remember like questions that came and whatnot. But I know I had like a few repeats. Yes. So then I'd say that when you get to like about a month to your test date, focus on your MBMEs. Like it's something that really helped me. Please don't start your prep and start with the earliest MBME. I don't know. I think it's just a Ghanaian medical student thing. Like, okay, always start with the new Pascal and then like you do from new to old. No,
like that.
you don't do new to old for USMLE. Like always do old to new because the newer MBMEs are more likely to, like the concepts there are more likely to be tested. So then don't start with MBME 33 at the beginning of your prep. Because really, I think one thing most people don't know is MBMEs are actually quite predictive. I would say that you need about more than 65% to be sure that like you're going to pass because I got about like, it was my final MBA that I had 70 plus on. All my MBAs were like 63 to 65, 67, 69. I was really in the 60s. And I think probably because I had like a shorter period to learn. But I don't think you need, because like Reddit has like this concept, oh, get about like, oh, you should get at least 3 MBAs. You should score like more than 70 just to be sure. I mean, if you want that assurance here, because I think they're all different. After my last MBA, I was sure that, okay, I'm ready. So no one knows how ready you are except you. Like, you know your readiness.
That's what I wanted us to talk about next, actually. The
yes.
illusion of being ready. Like, when am I really ready? And how the effect of waiting, because some things are a lot more volatile, like the microbiology. It's very volatile. So it's like, when are we ready? When are we actually ready for this exam?
I genuinely think your MBME scores don't lie. I see a lot of people because I was really on Reddit. Sorry, I'm making a lot of references. Like
That's fine.
Social media. The entire time I was actually nowhere to be found except on Reddit. So then I know that on Reddit, like you find people who scored like 70 plus on MBMEs and they come back from their real day and they're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm going to fail. No, I think your MBME scores really do not lie. I think the cutoff for passing is 65. I've met people who actually think the cutoff for passing is 60 because I've met people who actually had like between 60 to 65. They never scored more than 65 and they still passed. So I think the thing is, don't neglect the mental aspects of this exam. Don't like go in, be confident in whatever you're confident in. If you're Christian, be confident that God is going to help you. If maybe believe like, okay, yeah, I believe in myself. Like always have this belief system, something that keeps you going. Because if you go there and you are this like your confidence is shaky, I think you can like really, really because after one block, you probably start feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail, forgetting that to be fair, 200 out of 280 questions are going to be scored. Apparently, there are 80 experimental questions that really do not count your final like score or anything. So you need to sometimes just tell yourself that it's an experimental question and move on. Like you just do that
for your mental.
Exactly. So then I'd say your MBMEs are your best predictors. How about you guys?
I share similar sentiments actually. And I think just shedding a bit more light on the confidence aspect. You can only have confidence on test day if you put in the work, As I said earlier, there are no shortcuts. People can score between 60 and 65% and still pass on the real deal because they thoroughly went through. The reviews are gold. The MBME reviews are very, very slow, but you also need to really go in order to make sure that you understand every concept, every single thing you got wrong and why it was wrong. So your confidence comes from all the work you've put in. You need to remind yourself, I put in all the work. I'm coming to collect the fruits. And there's nothing going to stop me from getting that pass because on my MBMEs, I already had the pass. So MBME, the full meaning of MBME is National Board of Medical Education. So they are an organization that usually sets these US medical exams, like the USMLE. So they have practice tests that they send out and are available for the public to take just to see if you're actually ready to sit the exam. So you acquaint yourself with how the exam looks like, basically. So basically, as I was saying, you need to work on the confidence aspect and you need to work on it by being adequately prepared. And I'm saying this because on test day, anything can happen. Personally, for me on test day, I faced a few hurdles. First off, because a lot of people don't take the USMLE in Ghana as much as in the US, there's just a single test center, and people taking SAT, the GREs, TOEFL, all those other exams, they all take their exams with you over there. And some people have to type to input their answers for their exam. It depends on the format. So imagine my shock when I'm taking my exam and then there's someone sitting by me, typing her heart out, like away. And it's so distracting. And I use the noise cancelling headphones, and they still don't do anything. So I quickly had to signal one of the invigilators to bring some noise cancelling headphone that works for me to use because I couldn't afford to be distracted, Because as you go on, the questions do not get easier, and there are lots of questions, there's a lot of fatigue, so you need focus. Another hurdle I faced in my exam was the screens separating you from the person sitting opposite you are not tall enough, So when someone is sitting opposite you, you can see them. And unfortunately for me, there was a certain gentleman. I think he was taking a different exam, but he kept swaying from side to side, moving front and back. And
that would be
I was already
yeah.
really anxious,
Yeah.
and needed to focus, and I didn't really know what he was about. Maybe he was swaying from side to side to calm himself down, but it was making me more anxious, So I didn't let it bother me for too long. I quickly snapped out of whatever I was feeling, and I requested for the invigilator to bring a chair I could adjust so I could push the seat a bit down because I couldn't ask to be moved to a different desk because they've already assigned you to the computer you're supposed to use, and you started the exam there already, So I had to make all those requests and sort of just make sure that I was okay. And you can do that when you have a clear head, when you're confident, when you've put in the work and you know that, these are just a few things that are getting in my way, and you try and go around them. So you need to put in the work. That's my mantra. Just put in the work.
Yes. I'm just gonna add. Oh, sorry, Pearl. After you.
Yeah, I'd like to commend Gloria. I think it's not really Ghanaian of us to. I'm speaking on behalf of Ghanaians. Speak up,
Right.
speak up.
Absolutely not. I would have sat through that and struggled.
I was facing the wall, so I didn't have an issue with I wasn't in the middle section. But genuinely, I think it would have been harder for me to please can you help me with this? Because I just think I'm worrying someone, or I don't know, I'm too shy. He's let's learn to speak up because, like I said, you've paid for this exam, or you can't just it's just one chance you need to get.
It's a lot of
and speak up. Yeah. And I also think one last resource that is not okay, two last resources. I'll save that one for the last. Melman. Gloria really was putting me on the Melman game because genuinely I didn't like Melman videos for personal reasons. Maybe everyone knows, but I just don't want it. Yes, but I think his PDFs are actually solid. All the systems that I think I use my week systems. Basically, I used Melman PDFs during the last month, and it greatly helped. And mind you, it's free on his website. So Melman Step 1, you actually see all his PDFs there. I think his PDFs contain the high use stuff. And I was binge watching. I think the only system that I binge watched for Melman was microbiology because my microbiology sketchy was not helping. So it was really on life support. So I was really just doing anything. And it was actually I like how he makes you think through the questions. And I think it's something about divine intervention. So even though I rarely use divine intervention, I think they just teach you how to think because you need someone to get you in that MBM thinking mode, which is not something we are used to here, unlike the American medical students. So I think it just know how to set you in the mood. So I realized that on the real day, I was actually thinking that, okay, this, okay, that. And no one has this thing where he says that if you don't know the answer, more often than not, and I think Princess already mentioned this, you can really eliminate your way to the answer. And it's something that I actually applied on the test and it really helped me. So I'd say Melman PDFs in his videos, if you're eating, put on some Melman instead of putting on that Netflix series, get if you're driving, you can listen to divine intervention. He has amazing podcasts. Gloria can tell us about divine intervention.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the last resource I'll talk about is ChatGPT. I don't think we talk about ChatGPT enough when it comes to step 1. But personally, Chat was my best friend during this step 1 period. I pay for the like subscription, so it doesn't like hallucinate and whatnot. Like it's constantly like working 2/7. And I think it's just as prompts are helpful. For every question I put into chats, I'm like, okay, chats, this was how I reasoned like do the question to get this answer. So I'm like, okay, I think it's infective endocarditis because of drug abuse or this or that or that. And there's a new member. However, like explain like the other options to me why they are wrong and give
Yeah.
me different ways the MBME can test this. Chat was so spot on with that. Like Chat GPT greatly helped me. I'm not even going to lie. I did all my MBME reviews with Chat GPT. So I basically studied it by iPad. So I basically like divided the screen into two. And so like the question is on one side and then the Chat GPT explanation is on the other side. And I take like screenshots. So by the time I finished with my prep and it was like a week to my test date, I literally had like all screenshots of all my MBA questions with the ChatGPT explanations. And I went through one more time. Mind you, chat will explain every single like option to you and why it's wrong, tell you why maybe your reasoning. Because sometimes you can actually know the answer. Your reason is just flawed. Really, like how you just arrive to the answer is also like equally important. It's not just about getting
Yeah,
the answer.
yeah.
How you, and I think it was something Ulrich really emphasized when he was like taking us through and whatnot. So please, like ChatGPT can actually, if you can afford it, I think I didn't even use like the plus. There's this option Go. It's like for 599, like $5.99. It's really not that expensive. Yeah, it's not like it's $20 and yeah, whatnot. So I think you can actually take advantage of chats. It helps me personally. So, yeah.
Yeah, for most of that. So instead of using chat, I mostly use Gemini, and Gemini also
Mm-hmm.
really did help. So most of the
Yeah.
time, I copy the question. I'm like, okay, why was I wrong in thinking like
Yeah.
this? And it explains
Mm-hmm.
it. And if I'm trying to justify my answer, I'm like, okay, how would it have been if this were the answer? And then it
Mm-hmm.
really points out the other stuff you need to know. I know a few people who went through the questions without ever going through their options. So most of the
Yeah.
time, I would not go on from a question until I understand why each option was wrong and why my answer was right. And this is so
Yeah.
important because sometimes I realize that I got a question right for the wrong reason, and I'm like, I just got lucky. And
Yes.
reading through the whole thing, making sure that, okay, this is why, and I'm right for the right reasons. It's
Yeah.
also really important because, like we said, it's concepts. People will
Yeah.
test them it's like, it's the same if we are talking about diabetes. There are only so many ways you can think
Yeah.
about it. I saw that someone was asking about the questions, like how
Yeah.
to go through the systems. What I would say is that we are taught in medical school, like, you're doing gastroenterology, then you're doing this, then
Mm-hmm.
you're doing that. The USMLE will teach you that it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to ask you questions like, okay, let's do gastroenterology.
Yeah.
You can be doing gastroenterology and end up in ethics or
Yeah.
something really, really different. It really helps bring everything together, like as a
Mm-hmm.
whole, because, the human being is one. They don't really come to you like in
Yeah.
different the stomach doesn't walk into the office and
Exactly.
tell
It's
you
a
they have a
holistic.
problem. Exactly. It's really holistic in that way. So,
Yeah.
and one thing I did notice is that if you took the basic sciences seriously, if you
Mhm.
were active in trying to understand, things really do get much easier because you don't have
Yes.
to thoroughly
Mhm.
revisit all those little concepts. And
Yeah.
it makes things much easier for you because it's so fresh on your mind. You might not remember all the enzymes, but you're like, okay, I knew this. If it's a carboxylase, I knew this is doing this and that. So you go through things really fast and save yourself up on time. Because although you can pick a date for when to take the exam, like we said, because things are so volatile and there's so much information, you don't want to overextend how much time you're committing to this. Because
Yeah.
I'll tell you for free that it's very exhausting to sit and keep on like pushing the dates all the time. It takes a mental
Yeah.
toll on you. Because once you
Yeah.
commit, it hangs over you like your
Your
sin
head. Yeah.
that you carry every single day. You absolutely
Yeah.
don't want to push it too much because then you never really like, being ready again. It's like an illusion. That's something you don't want to do. That's really bad. I really like how you guys extensively explained that part.
And I like
Just okay. So
but you go
I just
first,
wanted
sorry.
to, yeah,
Mhm.
I just wanted to add a bit more on the resources to
Yeah.
just give a little
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
my, my experience. So specifically for the U World, in order to make sure I was consistent with completing every system I was doing, okay, let me backtrack a bit. So for the U World, I tried to complete all the systems before doing mixed blocks. I did my big mixed blocks about 2 months before I took my exam. So from then on, I was just doing mixed blocks throughout. So if I know I'm starting with the gastrointestinal system and I want to do 20 questions a day, then it means that I'm going to, find out the number of questions in the gastrointestinal system block. So let's say there are 200 questions. So that means it will take, if I'm doing 20 questions a day, then it's going to take me about, if my math is right, 10 days, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's going to take me 10 days.
10
It's going to
days.
take me 10 days to finish the gastrointestinal block. So I sit down and I calculate that for each of the systems I'm going to do. And that helps me calculate the number of months, the number of days, and the number of months it takes for me to
spend
go
that, yeah.
through
Yeah.
all the systems. So you try as much as possible to do 2 passes of each
Yeah.
system. So it means that when you calculate those number of days, you have to multiply by 2, add about a month for your MBME reviews, and you get
Yeah.
a full picture of how long it's going to take you
Yeah.
to do the U-World. And that gives you perspective, because if you don't know how long it's going to take you to do something, then you never really get it done. You might have an assignment that is going to take you 3 hours to do, but you're given the whole weekend. And the
Yeah.
weekend ends and you've still not done the assignment. So it's always better to have the number of days you're going to do the U-World set, and you just try and be consistent. It also keeps you in check, because you know that if I'm going to use 10 days and by the end of 10 days I'm not done, you're like, okay, what's happening? So you try to adjust. The other thing about the 20 questions is, if I'm doing 20 questions a day, I try to break them into individual chunks, maybe 5 questions in the morning, another 5 after ward sessions or in the afternoon. And that really helps put things in perspective. The other thing I wanted to mention was about the first aid as a reference to. I share similar sentiments with Pearl. I couldn't really read it back to back.
Yeah.
However, the pharmacology aspect of first aid is extremely high yield, because you can get a question correct from just knowing the drug name or its mechanism of action and a couple of other things, which Sketchy does cover, but not in so much detail. So what was really helpful for me was Divine Interventions podcast and videos. So Divine is a Nigerian interventional radiologist. He's based in the US and he makes videos for USMLE Step 1, Step 2, and Step 3. He has over 600 videos on his website. But on Spotify and Apple Music, it's about 200 and they're all jumbled up. So I try to use the website. So I go there to the pharmacology section of the USMLE Step 1, the podcasts are arranged, and there are about 30 podcasts there. So I listen to all of them repeatedly. I listen to each about 3 or 4 times. And in listening to those, I basically covered all of first aid, or almost all of first aid for pharmacology. And that was really helpful for me. So if you find that there is a specific resource that everyone is recommending but doesn't really work for you, you can try and do what works for you. You can also go on Reddit. Pearl has been mentioning Reddit a lot because it's really good. A
Yeah.
lot of people share their experience on Reddit. So
Honest
you can just go
experience,
on there
yeah.
and try and, when you find advice on Reddit, try and check for what other people are saying. Make sure a couple of people are recommending the resource you've seen. You don't want to just take obscure advice from anyone at all. Make sure you're seeing that
Yeah.
advice consistently in other people and try it out. If it's not working after a while, don't wait till it's a month later and you're still stuck on whatever new technique or strategy is not working. Try and adjust, adjust, adjust. Learn from people who have already taken the exam before you, so that you don't make a lot of mistakes that could have been avoided.
Yes.
Okay.
And yes. Oh, so Pearl, there's a question for you. But while you get around answering that, what I will say is there's this spirit of trying to do things in secret that people have to get over. As in, I don't know I honestly don't really understand it, because most of the help I've gotten is from speaking up, talking about, like, because sometimes, listen, you need this, like I said, this USMLE journey is very humbling. You need to talk to somebody, but people can only help you and open up to help you when they know what you're doing. Because if you are sitting in a closed box, you feel like you can figure this out by yourself. I mean, sure, and I really hope it works out for you. But trust me, the majority of people, you need someone to talk to. You need someone to urge you to keep on going. Like I said, the first few questions I answered on Ambos were very humiliating in a sense, because of how I was looking at it. I was like, oh, what have I been doing in medical school this whole time? But getting someone to constantly talk to me, remind me that I'm intelligent. Because if you're in medical school as a beginner, like first off, it means you are an IQ above everyone else, hopefully. So, getting reminded that, you are strong, you're beautiful, you're brave, you can do this. It really does something. And this is where filtering your environment is really important. Staying around the wrong people who are there and they're like, oh, this USMLE thing is hard. You need to focus on medical school now. You don't have time. What's I've come to realize, so they are anatomically the same as you are, and they have the same minds to be able to think through things. And you do more. It's just they have an advantage because of how their questions have been structured early on for them. But thankfully, that's not the biggest problem for you. So it's definitely something you can go through. What I'll say is, like, talk to people, open up. When you let people know what you're doing so that they can help you. Who knows? Someone can pay your whole, what you call, you world for you just because you spoke up that, oh, I'm struggling in this and blah, blah, blah. That little, sometimes talking to you and Pearl, you and Gloria, sometimes just hearing like a motivational statement like, oh, you can do this. Keep on pushing through. Don't let those red and green lines scare you or sway you. Keep on going. It's all the encouragement you honestly need sometimes. You talk to yourself, but can't do that enough. Pearl, would you be able to address this question now about during the rotations and taking the exam? You're muted, just in case. Okay, Pearl, we still can't hear you right now. Okay, just a second. While you get around answering the question, to answer the most recent question over here, so the total expense, aside the cost for like UWorld or Ambos if you're paying for it, the total amount of money you need to be able to take your step one today it comes up to $1,815. I mentioned this earlier in the beginning. I give the breakdown of the two different parts where you need to pay these amounts. It's not a lump sum as a whole. It's broken up based on what you're paying initially on My In Health and what you're paying for the FSMB website. Okay, go. And
Yeah.
Pearl, you can go
Yes.
ahead now.
Yeah, initially I couldn't unmute, so I think now I
That's
can
all
be
right.
heard, right? Yeah,
Yeah, we
so
can hear you.
then how to do it with the clinical rotations? That's a very good question. So I think I'll just give it like a quick overview of my journey. So like I said, I started in fifth year, like Thursday of fifth year, I started. And I started with special. So I'm talking like relative to the Ghanaian fifth year system, because I know there are other people from like different countries, but it's like the
Yeah.
Ghanaian system. So I started with special. Specials was for like 8 weeks. And, specials is like chill. I'm not saying you don't have to take special seriously. You take special seriously. But it was like the chill calm part. So I used that period to learn my pathology for all the systems. So I was doing like one system every 2 days. And I initially started watching Bots and Beyond, but I realized that the videos were so long and I couldn't stand this, like sitting through long videos. So then I remember speaking to Oric. Oric was like, you know what, just use your question bank. So I completely stopped watching videos, unless maybe there are concepts that I do not understand at all. I just quickly like search on YouTube, okay, infective I don't know, I'm really using a lot of infective endocarditis. Never mind. Because infective endocarditis step one, short video. I just watch that video and I just move on. So I think I like what Gloria said. So just divide the question banks, like the questions you have in the question bank, like for the across the days, basically. So I realized that when I finished specials after 8 weeks, I pretty much finished all the systems like pathology, anatomy, and physiology. For some strange reason, I think subconsciously, I just told myself that I'll do microbiology, biochemistry, and ethics last. So I just kept that for like the last 2 months because I just felt like microbiology and biochemistry, like those details are so minute and I didn't want to learn them because I know I'll learn it again either way. So like, why not just keep it for the last part? So I think that's what I did. So specials time. And I mean, like if my classmates, like they were always like, why are you always learning? Like, it's literally just specials we're doing. But I mean, if you're my friend, I'm going to tell you. If you're not my friend, like, I don't think I'm entitled to tell you. So I'll just say, oh, I'm just learning. Yeah. So then I think I always get this question, like, this is even like beyond step one. Oh, how do you get time to even do research? Like, I think as medical students, we actually do have time. There's this illusion that I don't have time. Oh my gosh, I'm the busiest person in the world. You're not. Like, you're really not.
You
Like,
have the most time in
you
medical
have
school, if
so much
anything.
time.
Honestly.
Like you have so much time, like from your walk, if you walk, like some of us, like if you walk from like the blocks to class. I remember during our bus rides to APH, Accra Psychiatry Hospital, like I took advantage of every little time. Like I mean, not like our lecturers try their best, but sometimes when they are late, that's like
It's a
enough time to
blessing.
do like a
Yeah.
20 like question test. Exactly. So there's always time within your day, like throughout your day. So try
Yeah.
and like make the most out of it. Like that time that you used to chit chat. I'm not saying like don't have friends or don't have time for your friends, but I also think that it's a commitment you're making and you need to actually
Yeah.
sacrifice. Like it's a
Mm-hmm.
commitment, yeah. So
Yeah,
then
if you have to lose something, yeah.
you really
Yeah.
have to, it's like you have to give something, yeah. And yeah. So then when I finished specials, I moved to ONG. My ONG team was essentially the most stressful team. I love that team, by the way. Don't get me wrong. It was
See.
like a very, very good team. But I think eventually it did help me because I learned most of the things that I had to learn on the wood. I didn't have to, because when I'm coming back, I'm not coming to learn ONG. I'm actually come to
Yeah,
looking for
do
step
your
one
questions.
and
Yeah.
make the most out of every board time, like all the tutorials. I know that I'm taking it here like once and for all because there's no time to go back. And then like my team was that stressful that when you come back, there's actually no time to even sit down and learn because you're just so tired. Like, yes. So that I know like when we're on the word, like okay, we're on DT, there's something happening. I just take my iPad, go to you or start
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
questions. Like
Do your
just
questions.
take
Yeah.
advantage of the little periods you get. Like thankfully, I mean, I was not on social media. I like actively avoided social media during this time, like TikTok. I was really nowhere to be found. Most of my friends were like, no, right. Like I just cut off every form of distraction, like logged in. So I think it's a commitment you're making. Like you can't do it half-heartedly. Like you get half-hearted results. So during the ONG, I think my ONG was sort of like my dedicated time. That was when I was like solidifying like the concepts that I was weak at. And I started like the microbiology. So for microbiology, actually, I just used first aid and it really helped me. So I just stuck to that. And biochemistry, for biochemistry, I think I used dirty medicine. I didn't watch all his, but like the entire playlist. So
Ooh.
I just watched
Yeah.
like the high
Yeah.
yield stuff. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think it was really good, even though his mnemonics are a bit hard to remember. I just got
Mhm.
the workflow. And to be fair, I think one thing we should also take notice. USMLE is not going to ask you, okay, what's the fifth glycolytic enzyme? Like, what's the fifth enzyme in the
That's
glycolysis
all.
pathway? No, like they always like the clinical correlations of things. I think that's what they focus on. Unlike Ghanaian medical school, where it's like genetics questions are like direct sheets. No, they are very like they like, okay, one metabolite is deficient in this pathway, those things. So they need to learn the clinical correlates, like the useful, the relevance. I don't know, like you need to know the relevant things. You don't need to learn the entire glycolysis pathway. You don't need to learn the entire Krebs cycle pathway. Just learn like the important things. So I think by ONG, the 8 weeks, the next 8 weeks, that was like my locking in period. And that was when I actually chose my dates and whatnot. So I then started pedics. Mind you, right? I wasn't actively learning ONG. Somehow I still did well in my end of rotation. I think it was my team that
Yeah, and I think it's
held me. Yeah,
showing up
yeah.
and being intentional on the ward to try and pay
Exactly.
attention.
Like,
Yes,
yeah.
especially when
Yeah.
you know you don't
That's
have
very true.
time. You don't have a choice
Yeah.
because you really don't have time.
Exactly. So I really took advantage of my ward sessions. So then from there, I did pedics, doing pediatrics while like your test dates was like, while my test dates was eminence was very hard because pediatrics is a very like I love pediatrics. Yes, but this is like it was really hard and like demanding because yeah, I feel like I was expected to know so much, but I didn't have the time to even like learn it. So it's like there's some days that you feel like I know this answer or I could have known this answer, but I'm not even learning this at this time. So it's like you kind of feel bad because like do I look down now? Like doing like something else. I think you just need to know like you know why you don't know the answer. So then don't feel like
Yeah,
don't like
yeah.
kill yourself or
Don't
like
be
think.
yeah.
Exactly. So I think my first 5 weeks of pediatrics, genuinely, I couldn't learn pediatrics as much. So I always just went to the ward when I had ward sessions, took everything I need to take from that session. When I come back, I'm coming to learn step one things. Yes, I think that's really what helped me. Some way, somehow, I still passed my end of rotation because when I got like 4 days off. Yeah, 4 days, and like the 4 days included my test dates. So when I came back to school, I technically had like 1 week and like 2 days to prepare for end of rotation. Thankfully, I think when you go to the ward, and I think it's something in clinical years, once you show up to the ward, you go for the tutorials, the classes, you
You take
actually
stuff
know
up.
what you
Yeah.
need to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's really what helped me. And I still ended up passing my pediatrics end of rotation. So I guess I hope it's like a good answer to the question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think just to add to what Pearl said, from my perspective on how I was able to balance learning for the exam with ward sessions and everything. I actually started learning for step one in first clinical year, so that's level 400. And luckily for me, we started off with community health. And for step one, what they usually test around community health would be biostatistics. So I started doing my biostatistics UO blocks alongside, and it was pretty smooth and streamlined. And then we started with medicine. So for medicine, we did it for 10 weeks and we had didactics. So in the morning. So I made sure I went for every single didactic, and the didactics were according to systems. So I tried as much as possible to align my blocks that I was doing for each system with the didactics we're doing in class. And that's really helped. So if we're doing, so we started off with the gastrointestinal system, and I remember it so well because I
we
started
actually did. Yeah.
I started my UL question under the gastrointestinal system. So I would check the timetable. So if we're using a week to do the gastrointestinal system, then I would push myself to make sure I finish the gastrointestinal system UL questions within a week. And so that's what I was doing. So that really helped. Now, outside of learning for the USMLE Step 1, I made sure to be in a study group, show up to every single study group meeting, be actively involved and engaged, so that I know that when I go for these discussions, if I missed anything that was said on the ward or in class, my mates tell me and I also contribute. There was also a certain teacher or tutor who would come to our hostel around 6 a.m. So he would have 1 hour sessions with us, preparing us for our final part one exams. I mean, waking up at 6 a.m. It can be quite stressful, especially if you already have to study for step one and also try to pass your rotations. But I made sure I always woke up. I had someone I was always going with to keep me accountable. And by going for those lessons, I was assured that if I stick to every single thing he's saying and practice my examinations with my friends, then I would actually pass my rotations.
Yeah.
And it's very good and it's very important because you can lose sight of that. In preparing for the exam, you might jeopardize your actual studies. It will be a bit sad and unfortunate to direct a lot of time towards studying for the exam and then fail your actual medical school exams, which means that during the vacation, you don't
Read though.
need time.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
very,
Yeah.
it does
Okay.
happen
Okay.
to people,
Yeah.
unfortunately, because
I
I
get
knew
that.
someone who had been
Yeah.
preparing for step one, both passed, unfortunately failed his exams, and only found out when he was like at the airport going for an elective. So he had to come back.
Oh.
But what I will say, Gloria, sorry to interrupt you. What I will say, for
Okay.
instance, is that it's not honestly like the medicine we're doing in medical school is not different. I remember I remember I had this question on rigor mortis, and I only remembered because those 7 a.m. lectures with Prof. Redu
Yeah.
showed up. And
Okay.
even though, like, sometimes during the lecture, when he goes on a tangent and he's storytelling, I take out my iPad and I'm answering questions. But I'm still passively listening. And I remember I was like, oh my God, thank God I was there that day. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'm going through questions and then I remember, I know Prof. Jojo,
Yeah.
mentioned this. This is why I remember this. I may have learned it on what you call on first aid, but just I've come to realize that it's also easier to remember things when it's attached to an activity or an emotion. So that's the thing people say, oh, you remember things more when you're happy or when you're sad. When there's an emotion attached to it, just being in a setting with people. Most of the things for ONG, I mean, I didn't learn them from step one. It's like being on the ward, listening to people explain. That's really what helps. So again, we can't overemphasize the importance of integrating everything because it's not different. It's the same human beings, the same conditions. If a woman is pregnant in the US, she's pregnant in Ghana or Africa as well. It's very you can't it's not two separate worlds. Integrating is early will help you appreciate and also help you take your medical your medical education here very seriously.
Seriously?
Because yes, I've realized that, like, on the board and stuff, I may have a question and I'm asking the question, and some people, it feels like it's far-fetched, but I know
Yeah.
the question I just feel the other day. I need to understand this. And sometimes, if I'm having a hard time understanding a concept, even though I put it in Gemini or something, like when we go to school, for instance, especially psychology, there were a lot of things because the timelines between the different conditions are so similar. I would
Yeah.
ask, like, the doctor there. That's why I would do my study. Like, okay, so if this a patient is presenting this way and this way, how will I know? And that's what really helped me through most of them. So yeah, it's really important. I'm really glad you both have highlighted the importance of that part. Absolutely
Yeah.
amazing. Sorry, Gloria.
Yeah.
Yes. So okay, yeah, Pearl, I think you were going to talk earlier about the tutor mode and the time mode. Or I think you mentioned it briefly.
Yeah. So then I started, so during like the time when I started initially with like MU World, during the time I was doing specials, I actually started with like the tutor mode. So yes, like that helps you like take your time, go through the questions and get the explanations. But and when it was like 2 months to the test dates, I started like doing it in time mode to get used to okay, I'm under pressure or have this time limit, so I need to work within the time. And actually, thankfully for me, I didn't have like time issues. And I think it's
Oh, that's
crazy because
wonderful.
during like when I was preparing for MBMs, like I always use like way less time than I'm supposed to. I don't know.
So happens.
Yeah, I mean, I actually didn't know. So then, like, if I don't know, I'll not waste time thinking about it. But I realized with the real day, I will not say I think I used more time than I expected. I was not behind time for any of the blocks, but it was still I felt like no, this is not my usual pace. But then again, I think it's yes, I think this also brings me to one point I wanted to make. One reason why we are also emphasizing why you should know your why is on the real day, like if you're going to be hearing so many voices, you need
Hmm.
to have a mechanism or a system that reassures you that this is the right answer. Like you need to find a way to prove to yourself that this is the right answer. You can't be doing guesswork because trust me, you were like, okay, well, the MBMEs or like whoever sets the questions, they are so smart and like you always eliminate to two options. There are always these two options that are so similar. So you have to be so grounded on why everything you know is like right or wrong. So you need to find a way to always prove to yourself that, okay, yeah, this is the right answer. That's why like we are stressing on the fact that you need to know your why for everything. Don't
Yeah.
just know what's, know your why, know your how. And I think there's also another point you raised that I like so much. For most of the questions or for questions that I saw on the real day that were not particularly in New World, there are things that I learned in medical school. For example, there was this question, it just came to mind, and how why you should always like examine the external genitalia in like a gastrointestinal exam. For something like this, I never saw it in any UL question. Really, I just used my medical school clinical like knowledge. So I think some of the questions too, there are things you're not necessarily going to see in Ambos or UL, but once you're a
Mm-hmm.
medical student, you should know. Like unless your
It's to come
medical
up
school
at
is not
some
teaching you exactly. So I think
Yeah.
one thing we also forget, like it's beyond, oh, I want to practice in the US. It's also, is your medical school teaching you what you need to know as a medical student? I think that they
Yes.
also test that because, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So I think that's really all I have to say about that.
Thank you for answering that so beautifully and holistically. I'm really, really glad about that. I really do hope this is encouraging because I know how we know how difficult it can be in the beginning, from the self-doubt to seeing those
Mm-hmm.
red and green
Yeah.
to reading on Reddit and going crazy based on what people are saying. And I really
Yes.
hope that this is attempting to prove,
Yeah,
because this is the evidence that it is possible.
it is.
It's very doable. I always tell myself every time I'm feeling low, I'm like, okay, two hearts, two lungs, one heart, one brain, and I have that too. Honestly, it sounds funny, but I actually really do that. And I mentioned this earlier, but I'll just hit on it again because of the kind of difference it's made for me. In terms of, I sit up, I clear my head. I don't let the question before, like draw me down for the next
Yeah,
one. Sit down,
yeah.
okay, I can do this. If I get it wrong, okay, now I can't get this wrong again. I take it as a learning experience, and that's really what helps. That is really what helps. So yeah, thank you guys so much. I'm really enjoying the discussion. I love the fact that we've extensively spoken about basically everything. that the average African medical student will need to know in preparing for this exam. We will take a few questions, if any. Most of the ones in the chat have already been answered, but we'll take 3 very direct questions. If anyone has any further questions that haven't been answered already. Gloria, would you like to talk about what you put up on MedPrep Maven? So anyone, they can reference it.
Yeah. So I came up with the documents detailing my experience taking the exam as an African medical student in a very relatable way. Because I mean, when you go on Reddit, you see a lot of stories of people who have taken the exam and had just 6 weeks of dedicated period and they passed on their first attempt. They always speak from their perspective. And I haven't seen a single submission on Reddit that has come from an African perspective, So
Yeah.
I identified this gap, and with the help of Ulrich, I was able to come up with a document detailing my whole experience, the resources needed. It basically covers almost everything that we'll be talking about today. So if you feel you still need a bit more information, or you feel you didn't hear certain parts, you want more explanations, just head over to the MedPrep Maven website and you would see my document there and just read through.
That is beautiful.
There's this one last point. Okay.
You can't download the document.
Okay. Sorry.
Let me try and send the link here in the chats. I think someone is unable to download the document.
Sorry, Pearl, were you going to say something?
Yeah, so I was going to say that I think it's something you mentioned earlier, but I don't think we've spoken about it extensive. Okay, well, I just like add my 2 cents to it.
Sure.
So I think it's very important for you to have that support system. And I didn't really have a lot of my friends interested. Like, it's just a Ghanaian medical student thing. Like, oh, when are you going to take step 1? Oh, after medical school. So, like, it was a very I didn't have anyone around me. So when I found out that, oh, Gloria had written, I reached out to Gloria, not to say, me and Gloria, where like we used to talk about, like, we have like US journeys, but we didn't really talk about step 1. So when I actually found out that she had written, I reached out to her and she was so helpful. Like, I think after every
Yeah.
NDME, I sent my score to Gloria, and Gloria was like always encouraging me, always telling me what to do. And I'm so grateful to her for that. And I think everyone needs that. It's not like you shouldn't do
Get
it
up,
by
Gloria.
yourself. You shouldn't do it by yourself. Like, you can't be
That's
alone
all.
behind this. Like, you need that system. And you people who have already done it, just humble yourself. Go then ask them what's worked for them. Like, it's just a Ghanaian thing. Oh, I don't want anyone to know I'm writing step 1. No one will do anything to you guys. Just go.
I think if I'm going to think of it, comes from a fear of what if I fail? Then they know I wrote it and I failed. If that's the mentality you're having in the beginning, then okay, I mean you have to be prepared to fail because that's what you're gearing towards. There's this thing about like the energy you surround yourself with, the mindsets you build on. If you are answering questions every day and you sit down there like, okay, I know this book, I don't know the answers, but I'm going to go through it and see. I mean, it's not good. Trust me, the mentality you carry through this really, really does make the difference for you. I'm really glad you've touched on that again. Get help if you need to.
Speak up,
Talk about it. Yeah, speak up. Speak up about it always. Okay, Gloria, I see you put the link in there. Thank you.
Yeah.
So the next session we're going to have is going to be on research. We're going to be talking about research. And I'll give you guys the opportunity to briefly talk about your research experience so far, just what you're doing. But I'll start. So like I said, there's a very important benefit in making sure you're streamlining your research. Like when someone looks at your portfolio, they should see where you're going. Because so this is just to say that you can't jump onto too many things that are too random in the beginning. Otherwise, for someone looking from the outside, it looks like a very disorganized person without like a particular focus. Because if you're here, you're in gastroenterology, then you're in neurosurgery, then you're in cardiothoracic surgery. It really looks messy. So find an interest and grow on it. There are lots of resources online, which we will be talking about in our next session. So please be sure to join that. Research is very exciting. Research has made me appreciate and understand medicine a lot more. And it's made me fall in love, honestly. It's not as difficult as it seems. Because before, when I used to think about research, I'm like, oh, this is so hard. I don't want to do this, But it's something very beautiful that I encourage everyone to get into. The first conference I ever attended was a small one. It was called the General Thoracic Surgical Club Conference. And going for it, seeing all those other people encouraged me even more to make sure I take the step 1 because the possibilities and how far medicine actually goes. and to my next conference at the American Heart Association, where I saw like these are the people who are writing like the protocols that we are using in the hospitals now, seeing how they think things. It was so beautiful. And it's definitely something you can't be a part of, no matter how big or small. And getting involved in things like this at the beginning and early on is really also interesting in helping you like solidify your interests. Because it's only after these conferences that I always knew I wanted to do cardiothoracic surgery, but I fell in love even more after the conferences because I saw all these people. Like I would watch videos on the day in the life of a cardiothoracic surgeon, and I got to ask them in real life, and it was so interesting and it was so inspiring. And to research gives you the opportunity to be a part of that change. And and trust me, the easiest time to publish papers and attend these conferences at the most affordable rates is when you're a medical student. Because for a conference registration, you pay a lot more when you're a doctor. It's really subsidized, even for like registering to be part of the organizations. Part of the AHA as a medical student, it's much cheaper when you're a student compared to when you're a doctor. You get to sign up for like different awards and grants and stuff like that. I really encourage you to take advantage of it. We will talk about it during our next session, much more extensively on how you can get this going. I don't know if Gora is still on the call. Yeah, Gora, there you are. Oh, and Gora sent me a few days ago some very exciting research that she's doing. Yes, because I saw it and I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I love Gora. Please tell us about it, if you don't mind.
Okay, so basically dermatology, as I said earlier, and I started research after passing step 1 because then that hurdle was out of the way. So we've been working with Ulrich so far, and we've worked on 2 topics so far. There's the traction alopecia and there's also hair relaxation. But the current one, which is really of interest, is the traction alopecia. I think traction alopecia is hair style induced hair loss, basically. And it's something that affects African women. It's something that is treatable once it's detected early. And it's something that is not talked about as much as it should.
And
It's something that affects us. When I go to the salon, some of the hairdressers, my hair, that's, oh, auntie, please don't pull my hair, it hurts. It's not normal for your hair to hurt when you are done braiding. It's not normal. Some people say beauty is pain, but
like no
it's not
pain.
normal. That constant pulling on your hair, using hair relaxers, hair creams, and tight braids really does affect you down the line, and you only realize it when it's too late. And so we did a scoping review. We looked at research that has already been done on traction alopecia in women in Africa, and we found some results. So based on those results, we decided to come up with an AI tool that would help with the early detection of traction alopecia in African women based on certain characteristics and hair care practices that women have and take, basically. So it's called Traction Score AI. I see you pasted it in the chat.
Yeah. So for all the ladies, especially, please, please, please fill this out if you wouldn't mind. It's very exciting. I was so excited going through the questionnaire myself. I was like, oh my God, this is so well put together. So please do. And yeah, Pearl, would you like to tell us about your research so far?
So for me, I think I started research very early. I started research the vacation after first year. So it's like between first year and like second year. That was like 2023. It was very, very early. And I'm grateful because I had like the right mentors who like showed me like right from the start
What to
how
do?
research is. So I've been here in this for a while now. Exactly. So it was for me, it started with a very simple task. Like I think I was just assigned a section to write in this like paper. And I actually enjoyed it. I just felt like it was all right. It's like it wasn't anything involving. So the more like as time went on, I started like knowing about systematic reviews and the bigger projects here. And I think most of the time the question I get is, oh, how do you do it? It's just a very common question. And I think now the best answer I found is to just do it. Because
Just do it. Yes, absolutely.
I
You
didn't
just do it.
start with any fancy, exactly. Like I didn't start with any fancy research course or whatever. Like I think research is something yeah, I admit that sometimes you need formal education through like an MPH or whatever, but it's also something that you learn as you do. I've seen so many people who haven't gotten like a formal research education, but then they know so much just because they are learning like, okay,
You just
last time,
started.
so
Yeah.
yeah, and then like they're just doing. So you really just learn by doing, and you have so much time. Don't say you don't have time. Even
Yeah,
though,
that's
yeah, when I was prepping for my step one, I had to like take a break from research. But yeah, no, I'm back. I'm back. So I think that's really what it's like for me. And it's
yes.
pretty much like neuroscience stuff. So both neurology and neurosurgery, yeah, daily dialogues between like the two. Yeah. So it's like that for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We will definitely talk, extensively about the research. I'll share my
Yeah.
journey of how I started with writing and everything during our next
Yeah.
session, the next one on research. So please join. It's going to be really exciting. Research is one of the best things you can do, especially in medical school, to increase your exposure to things. So, in the absence of any further questions at this point, I think we can wrap up on this meeting now. This has been so exciting. I've been inspired. And
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed hearing from both of you and knowing that, and for any
Yeah.
other medical student on the
Yeah.
call, I really hope you are aware that you are not alone. I'm going to give you guys the opportunity, Gloria and Pearl, to just say like 2 lines of encouragement for anyone else preparing, because you know what it felt like
Yeah.
sitting on the other end of the computer looking at us and watching. What would you say to this African medical student right now? So, Pearl, you can
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay, so I think before that, I'd just like to say thank you to Oric, because I think if it weren't for Oric, I probably would have written step one next year or probably after medical school.
Or
Like,
never.
yeah, never exactly, because it's like it just feels like this big thing, and no, I can't do it now. And he really just made it so small in my eyes and made me see how like he believed in me. And I think sometimes it's just so nice
Yeah.
having someone who has already like done it, like telling you that yeah, you can do it too. And I guess it was his birthday, but he said happy birthday again. But yeah, like God bless you so much, Ulrich, like for pushing me to do this. Like forever indebted to you. So what I would say to any Ghanaian or African medical student is like you are, and I think it's something Princess said. Most of the American medical students actually write step one in like their second year. I don't see why we should wait up to 6 years of medical school to write it. Like it doesn't.
Always remember.
So you are very capable. Don't think your curriculum is insufficient or it's not enough or anything. Like you can really do it. And yeah, like seeing us do it, I think that's enough motivation really. And yeah, all the best guys. We are always available.
Yes,
Yeah.
always available for questions. The link we had up before had a
Yeah.
QR code to our social media, so you can always reach out, and you definitely should reach out at every point in
Mhm.
time. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing that, Pearl. Gloria, what
Yeah.
would you like
So,
to say to end?
well, I'd also like to really thank, first of all, well, he's not on this call, but I don't know if he would see
Yes,
this. Yeah, but
you will.
I really want to thank my elder brother. He's called Frank. He's a medical doctor now. He's the one who truly pushed me to even consider taking the exam in school because he's been through the process and he knows how it's like. I think I want to thank his friends as well for guiding me because it's always better to have community because once you have a strong community and a support system, everything is much, much easier. I'd also like to really thank Ulrich for his 1 week test taking strategies he took me through. It was really
Fast
calming.
forward, yeah.
It was really calming, because then you're scared. You've never seen anyone in your class take it, apart from Ulrich, of course, because he's very smart. But for us,
Yeah.
the regular students, you've never seen anyone take it and you're really wondering if you can do it. But he was very encouraging throughout. And I think that was really helpful. Thank you so much, Ulrich. What I would say to anyone listening to this right now is you should not take the exam until you are absolutely ready. It's a pass or fail exam. And the consequences of taking the exam when you're not ready are very dire. So you should be ready in terms of knowing your content, but you should also be ready in terms of the mental aspect. Make
Mm-hmm.
sure you prepare adequately and you protect your mental health because sometimes it can become very hard. So that's what I'd like to say. Thank you very much.
That's very beautiful. Thank you, Gloria. My last 2 cents on this, like you've both extensively already mentioned, this is not something that's as easy to do when you're alone. I can't overemphasize the benefits of having the right people around. Someone like Oric. I can't talk about it enough, basically. You need the right people around you. And once you set your mind to it, like do it till the very end. You need to go through the entire process because it's very easy to like wax and wane along the journey, especially when school gets busy or when any family life issues come up. But stick to it so it can be done with it once and for all, and you can be done with it in the very right way. It's very possible and it's very doable. And we will really be looking forward to hearing your testimonies of how you've all passed. So sharing all our stories together. It will be so nice to have a community where the African medical students are encouraging each other. We're going through these things. We're getting into the photo specialties where people don't get into. So it's a very possible journey. It's not the easiest, but it definitely is possible. Thank you so much, everyone, for making time to join this meeting. Again, you can scan the QR codes displayed to guys' social media. You can reach out at any time. Yes, so you can start by, addressing the question from Charles, you can just start by reaching out to us. We will consider doing something like that. But yeah, thank you. Thank you all so much for making time to join this meeting. Thank you for staying all through. I know it's been long and it's been a lot of talking and there's a lot of information. But I really do hope it's hit the spots it needs to hit. Get the right people around you and let's all do this together once and for all. Thank you so much for your time. And I wish you a very, very good evening.
Yeah, enjoy
Thank
your
you.
weekend.
Yes, enjoy your
Guys.
weekend. Bye, guys.